Personality and business, how do they relate? Do you know your personality? Do you like your personality? Do you think your personality leads to business success or failure? Well, let's jump into a deep conversation about all of that, starting with defining what personality is, how we measure it, and how it relates to business today. So let's jump into it. All right, personality, let's define it. Have my handy dandy pointer that I didn't turn on yet. So that's the reason for the pause. Let's get into it. Okie dokie. Defining personality. So personality is relatively stable. And so what I mean by that is after a particular age, we are kind of set in who we are as far as our personality. It doesn't drastically change over our lifespan. And so what doesn't drastically change? Well, we have these set of patterns and behaviors that are just really consistent over time that is built off of our internal state, the way we process information, our emotional behavior, our emotions, our behaviors, etc. And so you can tell someone's personality by acutely watching their behaviors and watching the way they move, the way they react over extended a period of time. And so to put it all together, personality is a sum of ways in which an individual reacts to and interacts with others. And so what we do know is that there are some personality dimensions that can range from being very trait-like to very stable. So what do I mean by that? Well, we know that this broad idea of what a personality is pretty stable over time, meaning there's going to be not too many drastic changes to our personality, especially in adulthood. However, there are characteristics of our personality, right? Like our temperament or how we do respond or interact with others that can change over time. So there's maybe parts of our personality that can change a little bit over time, which will make it state-like. So it can change depending on the situation, where there are also aspects of our personality that is very trait-like, very, very stable, and most likely going to be rooted and not budge over time. So it's important to know that when we're talking about personality, it is this umbrella term of the patterns of behaviors that we have when we're interacting with the world and people around us. But then there's also acute factors that hint at our personality that can change over time. And so we'll talk about that too in later videos about some personality characteristics that specifically relate to business success. All right, so how do we measure it? So measuring personality is important because potentially, and what we'll talk about later, is that personality can impact the way we work, the way we work with others, and then the way we work with the task, right? And so in order to understand the fit a person has within a team or organization, to know if this person is going to be able to successfully work in this team or successfully work to this capacity, they will want to measure these key personality traits that research has shown can impact business success, which we'll get to in later videos, like I've stated. So we have personality tests that are often used in hiring decisions to help managers forecast that success of an individual. Now, it's important for these personality tests to be unbiased, not favoring any one gender, race, etc. But the personality test can be particularly accurate in things that matter for business success. Then, of course, we will want to measure them in that hiring process so that we're picking our top talent. The most common means of measuring personality is through self-report survey, and I have a link to some personality tests that you can take. You can also just Google personality tests, and a host of free links will pop up. Self-report surveys are a great way to tap into the internal states of individuals. As us, we are the authority of us, our own person, our own being. However, of course, there is some bias, because sometimes, although we are ourselves, I am me, there's still some things that I might not want to share or may not be privy to. So self-report surveys do have a little bit of bias as far as desirability or just bias in general, but that's usually how we try to measure personality. The only other way, a popular way to measure personality is again by just acutely watching the patterns of behavior from a person. So maybe if you are dating somebody and you want to check out their personality, you're trying to see how they consistently show up across different situations, across different contexts, across different people. How do they show up is usually a great indication of who they are and what their personality is. And then obviously in the workplace, as you watch your coworkers work within teams, within different teams on and off the job, you can start to understand their personality a bit better. So it is important to state, like, where does personality come from? Especially since we've already indicated or pointed our hats towards the idea that personality is pretty stable over time. So then the question is personality the result of hereditary factors, or is it environmental? So this is going back to the nature versus nurture debate that will, potentially never be solved in our lifetime, that really fuels a lot of psychological conversations, especially when it first started. But are we born this way, or does our environment shape who we are as people? And a lot of the research where we're looking at twins and we're doing these twin studies will show that, at a very conservative level, we can at least say 50-50, but most of the research shows that our personality is, in the aspects of our personality, it's about 70% environmental and 30% hereditary. But at the end of the day, we do know, however, that they're going to be playing a role, both parties. So hereditary refers to, especially, just in case you don't know, some of you already may know, refers to those factors that are determined at conception. So this is the things that happen at birth. Before you even are able to interact with this so-called environment, then we have these hereditary factors. And the hereditary approach argues that the ultimate explanation of an individual's personality is the molecule structure. What the freak? Oh my gosh. Is the structure of the genes located in the chromosome. So yeah, we don't teach science over here, huh? But anyway, let me refocus. So what we're basically saying is there are some camps of scholars that do believe that a lot of our personality is just built from that conception, just from birth. We are who we are before we even interact with our environment. But as I stated again, there are some other scholars, and a lot of the research shows, especially in different areas, and especially in the workplace, that a lot of the factors that relate to personality and that's relevant to business success is about 70% environmental and 30% hereditary. Let's get in our last conversation, because it is important to know that there is this dynamic between who we are and our personality and our external environment. So of course, yes, we've already stated in the previous slide that a part of our personality is from the environment to which we grew up in, but then also certain environments can trigger different parts of our personality or the intensity of our personality. So let's talk about that dynamic. So we have this theory called situation strength theory, okay? And it indicates that the way personality translates into behavior, okay, depends on the strength of the situation. And this is so important, right? Especially like if we could do in the workplace stress tests, before we even hire, we get to see, how someone's personality shows up when a situation is very strong and intense. Because sometimes, especially the more negative aspects of our personality, which we'll talk about in the dark triad video, but sometimes those aspects of our personality can lay dormant, meaning they're not surfacing, they're not causing mayhem, they're just kind of underneath the surface and everything is fine, until that one situation comes that really sparks that aspect of our personality to really bark, okay? You know what I mean? All right, so the situation, or the degree to which norms, cues, or standards dictate appropriate behavior. So our environment, this is so true. This is a very, a truism, if you will, within organizational behavior, that the environment that we set within an organization, within a business, within a team, it has its norms and cues that help individuals within that organization understand what appropriate behavior is and inappropriate behavior. That's why you can go to one establishment and you can see people doing a host of different behaviors, go to a different environment and they act differently. Let me give you an even better example. Have you ever worked at a place an organization where you clearly saw signals from the environment that it was okay to slack off, that time didn't really matter that much, efficiency wasn't that important. Maybe there were some processes that that cued you to this. Maybe the norms were inefficient, etc. And so in this workplace, you might have had these personality dimensions that are more salient to laziness, or procrastination, or just not being diligent. And then you yourself, that same person, can go to a different organization with different norms, different cues, a different environment where it is, achievement oriented, and efficiency matters, and being prompt matters, and professionalism matters. And whether you hit their personal mark, what we do know most likely is that you will probably be producing at a higher level than when you were in the other organization with those different cues. You're still the same person. And so we know that the situation can really bring out different personality attributes to us. So every time we are talking about individuals within the workplace, we still always want to consider the context, of course, still to the team and the organization to which that individual rests within. So when there is clear, consistent norms and cues and standards of how to act, your personality will fall in line with that. If there's particular constraints that are present, your personality will interact with that. And this is just to show, I think the situational strength theory just shows us that even though we have these stable patterns of behavior, a situation that brings about, that's very strong, can impact the way our personality manifests into behaviors. All right, so that's it for this. We're going to talk more about some personality measurements in the next video, and we're also going to talk about the dark side of personality, a conversation that a lot of people don't want to have, but we're not always flowers and roses. And then we'll also talk about some key personality factors that really are important for business success. So stay tuned, and I'll see you guys.